Welcome back to the Dungeon of Doom podcast. I am Ben Raven, joined by Kory Woods.
What up, dude?
That's right. It is November 21st. The Lions are about to head to Indianapolis to face the Colts this weekend. A solid Colts team. Anthony Richardson showing some signs of life, but most importantly, it's the last road trip until the weekend before Christmas. 3 straight home games on the horizon. 3 games, 11 days. Ooh. Don't blink now. This is the time of year where you blink and all of a sudden it's the playoffs. Like, seriously, man. Yeah, you've done these Thanksgiving games for a while. How can we just explain how crazy this 2-week span is to people?
I mean, well, first off, it's already crazy because, of Thanksgiving just in general. You got to go. It's not a 1 o'clock game. It's like a 12:30 game. Yeah. And then, you're missing time with your family. But I think what makes this even crazier is the week after it's another Thursday game. I don't think I've seen that. So it's like, okay.
I know, man. It's like, all right, I love the Lions playing on Thanksgiving. It is a Michigan, Detroit, cool tradition. Yeah. When this franchise sucked and gave you nothing to cheer for,
you can look forward to that.
At least you could look forward to a cool national audience game on Thanksgiving. But yeah, when you NFL, Roger, I'm talking to you on this one. Don't you ever schedule a Thursday game after Thanksgiving. That means I don't get to see my family. My family lives 4 hours away. I don't get to see my family this year. Usually it's just hey, let's pretend Friday's Thanksgiving. Let's eat a meal together, and I'm going back to Detroit. No, not this year. Not this year.
It's brutal. That's brutal.
Yeah, it's 3 games in 11 days. It's Bears, Packers, and then Bills. This is a tough stretch right here. Lions will be wearing the black jerseys against the Bills, the 3rd game of that stretch. Mm-hmm. Then they get the little weekend. After the Packers game, there's a little extended break. But yeah, man, that's tough. That's 3 games, 11 days, your short week into Thanksgiving, and then you get a normal rest turnaround into Thursday. You don't get that extended break. Yeah, it's tough. Tough stretch for sure. But we've got a Mailbag podcast in store for you here today. Great questions from our Subtext Insider texting service. Find that in any MLive story. Email me, email Kory. Blue Sky us, we're on there. Axe us, we're still reluctantly on there. But let's get into it. Allison Foster, she's got a question. It's Kory and I. Let's explain it. I know Patrick, our producer, likes when we can explain this. With such a good team, why is it called the Dungeon of Doom? The Dungeon of Doom's got nothing to do with the state of the franchise. That is what Jim Caldwell dubbed the Lions beat. He was fielding some tough questions one day. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, it's like the Dungeon of Doom in here. And it just stuck. Kyle remembered that. I'm a wrestling fan, so I loved the idea of having a football podcast that worked with the Lions and wrestling being called the Dungeon of Doom. So that's the origin right there. Jim Caldwell called the Lions beat the Dungeon of Doom. Looks good on a logo. Sounds cool. That's why we're called that.
It's really unique, too. I mean, it stands out. It rolls off the tongue. I like the name. I love it.
Yeah, I was psyched when we landed on that one. Like, perfect. Dungeon of Doom, like, that's freaking perfect. And obviously, we should probably update our, Spotify bio because 6 decades of uninterrupted losing. We got to get your face on there, too. But, let's go into another one. All right, thanks for the question, Allison. Always nice to be able to explain that. I know people like the origin story. I think we've been doing this for 3 years now, so it's always nice to get that update in there. But Mario's got a great question. Mario's always got a good question. There's obviously a large buzz associated with the Lions this season. Is there still an aura of underdogs around the building? What has Campbell and the other coaching staff members done to keep them on track?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is.
Earlier in the training camp, I just talked to a lot of players, and I just asked them about that NFC Championship game because obviously, you're going into you're 30 minutes away from a Super Bowl and you lose that lead. Yeah. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And just from me, I've talked to a couple players, and they said, "Hey, we're focusing on getting back." And it's not even just a Campbell directive.
Right.
I believe he has that. He's spoken to these guys about it. Like, hey, there's this. You may not even get back, but there are guys that are just like, no, we're getting back. It's embedded in them. Even when I would just ask them, they weren't even talking. Like, last year they were a little bit more bouncy during practice when the music was going on, a little bit lively. This year, it just seemed like they were still upbeat and it wasn't buttoned up, but it was all business demeanor. And I talked to Khalil Dorsey. I talked to James Houston. I've talked to Derek Barnes, and they were just like, it's all business. We have to get back. That taste in our mouth.
Yeah.
We can't have that. So I think it's a director from the coaching staff, but I think it's just the players too. Just like, you're 30 minutes away from your first Super Bowl and the franchise's first Super Bowl. You have that chance to do something that's never been done, and you lose that. I think that's just put a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, and Campbell actually talked about it on Monday in his presser. He's like, I understand we're not the underdog anymore, but like, it doesn't change who we are. Like, it doesn't change the identity. It doesn't change who we want to be. Yes, we understand that there are different expectations and stuff like that, but this is still a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl. Yeah. This is still a team that hasn't hit their ultimate goal. And like, even if they win it all this year or win it all next year, like, the identity, the demeanor, it's not going to change. It's just going to alter. They know how good they are. They know they should be winning every game they play, and they know that the only way they're going to lose is if they beat themselves. But it just the messaging hasn't changed. The way they approach practice hasn't changed. The way they approach games has not changed. I mean, they're beating teams. They're beating the absolute living crap out of teams this year.
They are number one in scoring.
Yeah.
33.7 points per game, and they're on track to be the 6th highest scoring offense in NFL history.
And the defense hasn't allowed a touchdown in 6 straight quarters, and they're the best third down defense in the league. The Lions are the only team to beat someone by 38 points this year, and they've done it 3 times. So, yeah, man, they're not underdogs. They know they're not underdogs, but they still carry themselves like underdogs because they're young. This is still a young team. The age is kind of on the offensive line, it seems like, and obviously Zadarius and stuff like that. But like, this is still a young, hungry team that hasn't hit on its ultimate goal. And I just think they've altered because they know the outside perception has changed. They know that they have the horses to go out and beat anybody. But this is still a team that same identity, same messaging, same high intensity, foot on the gas until you're dead coach, and that's really not going to change. But good question there, Mario. Moving on to Chris Matthews. How do we feel Terrion Arnold has progressed throughout the year? Where is he now? It seems like teams are not picking on him, and he's cut down the penalties to a degree. But how is his actual play from your perspective and the coaches? This is why I've been banging the table all season. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. The penalties, that's a rookie thing, man. But we keep saying it, but like, look back to Darius Slay's rookie season. That man was getting picked on. He was getting called for every penalty possible. That is what happens when you are a rookie cornerback playing a ton of snaps in the NFL. Actually pulled up Arnold's stats here. The last 2 games, he has been targeted 8 times. He has allowed 3 catches for only 47 yards, 1 touchdown in Houston. But man, the penalties are getting cut down. I know he had a penalty in Houston, but I love the way he plays defense. He's sticky. He's physical. He's in your face. He's learning.
He's an aggressive guy, and I don't like to give anybody excuses because, I mean, it's the NFL. They're all paid professionals. But he went against, I said it before, he went against a juggernaut of receivers out the gate. Shoot, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. I mean, it didn't get easy for him along the way. Evans and Goodwin. I mean,
Jefferson Lamb.
Jefferson. Yeah. You can go down the line. It was a juggernaut. But the thing is, it was also good for him too, because they'd be able to go against that juggernaut off rip. He's only going to learn from it. And now I don't want to say he's going up against inferior talent, but he's now able to settle down a little bit after that bye week, he started to kind of like progress and settle down and not be so handsy out there. And I think he's only going to get better. Just, let him continue to develop. You got Carlton Davis out there. He's a guy that's been a good mentor to him, and we'll just see what happens. It's a young, and that's also another good thing too. I think that's a good reason they brought in Carlton Davis, because when you have a young secondary, you need a veteran to kind of like be out there and be like somewhat of like a coach or guidance on the field, somebody they can lean on.
No, and Carlton is kind of like the mold they want Terrion to be. I mean, they expect Terrion to be better than Carlton. That's why they took him in the first round. But like, man, Carlton Davis and how he's handled the situation and that room and how he's played this season is why I think, even if it's unlikely with the cap situation, that they're going to find out a way to keep that man around somehow, some way. I think he is too valuable for Terrion. He's too valuable for Enos Rakestraw, who we have not seen a ton of this year. But that's a good thing. You don't want too many – sorry, that's me beeping over here. But you don't want too many just young guys out there. If you got a veteran who can play the way you want to play, man, it's a perfect pairing. And I just look to Aaron Glenn, former cornerback who did some great things in this league at this position. Townsend, who's played a lot of ball, is cornerbacks coach right there. And then you get Carlton Davis in that room. It's the right blend of mentors and guys. And I'll just say one thing about that defensive back room. When you mess up, they're going to be on your ass. They're going to let you know. but it's not going to be to get you down. It's going to be like, hey, we have a standard coaching you up. This is what you need to do next time. And that is why I feel so optimistic about Terrion. I see the little improvements. I see him trying to do the things. And I know there's all this talk about turning your head downfield and making sure you find the ball. Sometimes that's impossible. Like, dude,
Lewis really posted a
yes,
great post on it.
that's where that was coming from. Yeah. Lewis, what did he say? He's like, you try running full speed, turning your head, and keeping up full speed. Like, it's not as easy as that. And I think the perfect play on that to compare is like, you can still make plays with your head not looking back at the ball. Look at what Mike Sandstrill did at Michigan last year, some of those plays. In that Ohio State game. Knew he couldn't turn his head, knew where to put his hand to break up that ball without getting a penalty. And I think that's the type of stuff you're going to see the Lions continue to work on Arnold with, because he's too talented. He's too good, still a little raw, but his pure talent and the demeanor, man, it's why he's playing the amount of snaps he's playing. It's why a Super Bowl contender, the best team in the NFL, feels comfortable having him on the field for as long as he does.
I mean, as much as Aaron Glenn is serious about this defense, I don't think he's going to leave Arnold out there if he didn't believe he had the talent to be able to make the plays and learn from his mistakes.
No, this is not a rebuilding team. This is a contender. I mean, he's out there for a reason. He's out there because he's one of this team's two best cornerbacks. I'm going to close my Outlook. My goodness.
You're an important man.
Yeah. Got a couple questions about Fatu Melifonwu. Brandon Thornton, do you think injuries give us a chance to re-sign him on a team-friendly prove-it deal, or will another team give him more money? Man, I'll lead this one off. I love Fatu Melifonwu, the football player. I love how he fits this defense. It's one of those guys I believed in heading into the draft, believed in anymore when they drafted him because of the fit. But, man, there's just weird vibes every time his name comes up in these press conferences. And I was talking with some people on our subtext service, John A. I'm pretty sure I shot back and forth with Mario and a couple of guys on it. It's just like, man, there's weird vibes. Like, I think they're frustrated that it's always something with this guy. Like, think about DeAndre Swift and how talented and how well he fit this group. They couldn't count on him. And I think the one thing you can do to get on Dan Campbell's, I don't even want to say bad side, but to get on that side where he's in the room. That's you're constantly down. You're constantly not playing through things you might be able to play through. I'm not saying that's what's going on here, but like, there's a track record here. And I think the Lions have reached that frustrating fork in the road with Melifonwu. Gets a finger injury. Did see him in the locker room with a brace on his hand yesterday. I mean, it's a legit finger injury. Not saying that, but I think that there is a level of DeAndre Swift-esque frustration with his availability and their ability to depend on him right now.
And, DeAndre Swift is a really good name to bring up because it reminds me of something that former Lions running back coach Deuce Staley said. And it's like, oh, bit again. Hey, it's funny now.
I closed all my windows. You go ahead. Continue on.
No, to your point, I'm not trying to insinuate anything about Melifonwu and his injury, but Deuce Staley says something very interesting regarding Swift. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's a difference between being injured and being hurt.
Yes.
And at this stage of the game, stage of the season, everybody's hurt. Mm-hmm. But are you injured? Mm-hmm. And to that point, it's just like, are you wondering, is Melifonwu just maybe taking a chill pill because something's hurt, or is he like really injured that is preventing him from playing? And I guess that might be the biggest question right now.
Yeah, and this isn't a question, but John A., I shouted him out. He just said, thinking on what you said, I totally agree with you. When Dan Campbell said if he was out again, his face looked like he was sucking on a lemon. And that's John, that's a perfect way to put that, because, I mean, they love him. They love him. They want him on the field. He's a slot. He's a corner. He's a hard-hitting safety. He's one of the best blitzers on this team, considering Brian Branch in that mix too. I mean, what Melifonwu did down the stretch last season, man, he was a key player. Interception in Minnesota clinched the division. Those blitzes he was bringing when there was no other pass rush opposite Hutchinson, I mean, he was a perfect fit for this defense, and he still is when he's healthy. But like, man,
but that's the caveat.
Yeah,
when he's healthy, and when you're a team, like you said, you just said it a moment ago, they're not rebuilding.
Yeah,
they're chasing a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and when you're trying to chase a Super Bowl, when you have a guy with that talent, you want him to be available. But the best ability is availability. And if he's not available, then it's kind of like, what good are you for us during this run?
No, absolutely. I mean, as much as they'd want to hold a spot for him and hold a spot for some of these guys that they brought in and love, I mean, shoot, look at Isaiah Williams a couple weeks ago. They would have loved to keep him. Everybody in this building would have loved to keep that man. You just can't. They're at this point where you just can't have open spots for guys that aren't helping you, and especially guys on contract years. So I give Melifonwu returning to the Lions a very small chance of happening at this point right now, and that's disappointing to say. But moving on, Kim, man, Brad Holmes' draft classes have been phenomenal, but how much of it is due to his scouting acumen and how much of it is the ability of the coaching staff to develop the talent? Points to Derek Barnes as an example, who struggled the first 2 years before becoming the Swiss Army knife linebacker he was. Kim went on to compare him to Kyle Van Noy, who didn't develop here, but then turned into something somewhere else. And I'll just say this. It's Brad Holmes' scouting. It's his scouts, but it's the cohesion with the football operations. It's the cohesion with the coaching staff. They are if they're not in agreement on something, they work to get in agreement on something, or they go another direction. And I think that really, you've got to have that type of buy-in, especially guys with Derek Barnes, when you're wondering, is he a linebacker? Is he a Sam linebacker? Is he a defensive end? What is he? How do we do this? You've got to have that cohesion, and the messaging has to be consistent. And I think that is one thing that Brad Holmes has mastered. He was a scout in the field. He led the Rams scouting department for 10 years. He knows what goes into, I mean, if you're an NFL scout, you better be able to find talent, but you better be able to find talent that mixes with what your coaching staff wants to do and how they want to play and how your developmental branches see them. Like, it's got to be cohesion top down. So I think it is scouting acumen, but I also think it is the coaching staff and their ability to develop talent and just having the right NFL players in those coaching roles. Not all former NFL players are going to be coaches.
Yeah.
That's why it's so impressive the Lions have found great coaches who also played in the NFL, and then you get a scout at the top as your GM like Brad Holmes, man, and they're in cohesion. It's cohesion.
I mean, and on top of that, it's going on of his scouting. When Brad Holmes was with the Rams over that time period, I want to say from 2013 to 2020, just that specific time period, the Rams drafted 20. The Rams had 25 Pro Bowls.
Yeah. So
Brad knows the talent, but also too, on top of his scouting acumen, Brad is a former player. When he was at North Carolina A&T, 4-year letterman as a defensive tackle. Also, Brad Holmes' dad, Melvin, played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he does have that scouting acumen, but he knows a little bit of something as a player as well from his dad and from, playing college football. So I think having all of that combined with having the right coaching staff and people in place, it all circles in. So I think the scouting acumen is there, but Brad does know the player side to a degree as well.
Absolutely. And having an assistant GM like Ray Agnew with all the experience he's had as a player, as an executive in the football world, man, it's not hard to get this many guys to agree on stuff, but they found a way. I mean, Campbell, Holmes, Agnew, Campbell. I mean, it is top to bottom cohesion, man. This is a team in every sense of the word. And I think that's why you see guys like Barnes developing into what they are. That's why you see, almost every pick he's made since he's been here is still on this roster somehow, some way. And that's just unbelievable.
I think one big thing that fans should really like about Holmes and the whole regime is that they're not going out and drafting everybody who people think they should draft.
No.
They're going and drafting people that fit what they want to do, and it's proven to work out.
Yeah,
so, to your point, they know themselves better than anybody, and I think that's one of the other big reasons why this whole marriage between the scouting department and the coaches is working.
Exactly. I mean, when Hutch was the number 2 pick, there was a lot of chatter about Trayvon Walker and Kayvon Thibodeau, great football players, but the Lions knew who they wanted from the beginning of that process, and it's because of the guy Hutchinson was.
I mean, look at Jahmyr Gibbs. There were people like, why did you go down and go grab him? And they were just saying, what about the positional value? Well, look at the positional value now.
No, exactly. And then even the Jack Campbell pick and the Brian Brandt. I mean, we could just talk about the picks for like 20. I mean, it's great football players who also perfectly fit this coaching staff and what this team wants to be about. And it is just knowing who you are at the end of the day, trusting your instincts, knowing who you are, knowing who your coaches is. And you're going to see a lot of copycats with these GM jobs opening around the league of trying. I mean, I see Jason Witten, next Cowboys coach. I'm like, let's just find a former player / tight end. It's like, so I think you're going to see a lot of copycats trying to mimic what the Lions have done here. But at the end of the day, it's all about the people, the human beings making those calls, and they got the right ones doing it.
You just said something right there. A lot of teams are going to be trying to mimic what the Lions are doing. When have you ever been able to say that?
Never. Never. So, yeah, there you go. Welcome to the good times, folks. Oh, Raymond Nuznoff, mailbag regular here. How many wins clinches the number 1 seed? The Eagles' schedule looks pretty like. And unlike last year, I imagine it takes more than 12 wins to make the road to the Super Bowl go through Detroit. Side note, how many points will the Lions have to score in order to put Hendon Hooker in the game before the fourth quarter? 35. But I was actually, ESPN's playoff simulator where you get to predict every game for the rest of the season is live. I was messing around that with the other day. I had the Lions going into week 18 with 12 wins. They had to win that week 18 against the Vikings to get the number 1 seed. Like, I had the Eagles right there with them. The NFC is kind of loaded, man, with winning teams. Like, it's a clouded picture. And the Eagles, I know they sucked at the end of last season. I know their head coach is a strange dude, but there's a lot of freaking talent. We got a couple of questions about the Eagles being the biggest threat to the NFC crown. So Matthew Erickson had one too. So we're just going to loop that in. This Eagles team's no joke.
They're serious, but I will say, they're on a 6-game winning streak. I believe the only team they beat with a winning record was the Commanders.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'll beat them again this season. I think they're probably going to split. But, I mean, they have the Rams, Steelers, and Ravens, and Commanders again over these next, I believe, 4 of those next 5 games. I believe they're going to at least drop a couple of those. I can see them dropping to the Rams. I mean, to the Ravens and the Steelers, because both of those teams are still playing some really good football. I think this, Mike Tomlin has the Steelers rolling right now under Russell Wilson. So I believe they'll drop at least 2 or 3 of those games. But for the Lions, I think they really need to just go ahead and continue to roll on, because if the Steelers just continue that winning streak, they're going to be nipping right on their heels, and just don't leave anything to mystery. Just keep on rolling.
No, I look at the Eagles and it's like Jalen Hurts, man. He's a mobile quarterback, one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the league. The Lions have had problems with that in the past. Saquon Barkley is playing like an MVP candidate right now, and that's crazy to say in this era of quarterbacks only at MVP, but like that man is doing some crazy stuff. And then you got AJ Brown, you got Devonta Smith, you got a very good tight end, you got a lot of studs on that offensive line. But the thing about the Eagles that makes them a legit contender to me is the defensive talent coming together. Quinlan Mitchell, the rookie out of Toledo, it looks like a stud. They got Cooper DeJean back there too. That's depth. And then you got the old friend Darius Slay, the wily vet man, and you got all those Georgia dudes in the front 7, the linebackers. I mean, I'm looking at Zach Bond and freaking Nakobe Dean are looking like a great linebacker duo. You got all that talent on the defensive line. I know a lot of people were sleeping on the Eagles, kind of still sleeping on the Eagles. And it's not just because they're on a winning streak, but like I look at the matchups between the Lions and Eagles, and it's like that's the toughest hill to get over in the NFC right now. Like if the 49ers were healthy and clicking, that would be a different story. But they're not. They're not. There's something wrong there. There is something wrong there. I still think the 49ers could be there at the end of the line when it's all said and done. But I am looking at the Eagles as like that is a team kind of built to go toe-to-toe with these Lions.
Yeah, I did say last year, when I also last year, at the beginning of the season, I'm like, I think it could come down to either the Lions and the Eagles or the Lions and the 49ers. We see the 49ers are kind of going through it. So, I mean, and the Eagles, what can you say about them?
Yeah, man.
They're on the roll, and Jalen Hurts, he's just back. Last year, to me, something was off about him last year, but it seems it's kind of like, dusted off, got things back rolling, and they're a tough out. If they're able to just keep this momentum they have right now, they'll be a tough out, but I do believe they may drop a couple of games these next couple of weeks.
And I will say this, unlike the Lions, the Eagles have a head coach that could hurt them in the locker room or on the field. I mean, that man does not seem to have a filter. People thought he was dead man walking coming into this year. So I do think that the big advantage the Lions have over the Eagle is Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What else is there to say? I mean, shoot. A couple questions on Emmanuel Mosley, too. I believe his clock comes up next week from the 21-day window. He was scheduled on the same schedule with Melifonwu, but Melifonwu was activated and put back on injured reserve. that's off the table for a little bit right now. But Mosley, that is someone that's not going to be rushed to action. That's back-to-back ACL tears, a torn pectoral, veteran, good guy that you want out there. But yeah, if he makes it to the end of the line and gets activated, I think you might see him get a healthy scratch or two, especially in this kind of tough stretch of games, 3 and 11 days. But man, what's your take on Emmanuel Mosley?
I would say, as of right now, do what you said. Activate him, but healthy scratch. Don't put him out there really unless you have to, because I don't want to say that he's fragile or anything like that, but he has come off some significant injuries. Yeah. And I would kind of like try to keep that guy healthier to like at least maybe the last game or two, just to gotta get him some reps, and then hopefully you have a week off because you still up the number 1 seed. You have a week off and then probably get him more role in the divisional.
Yeah, and Mosley is not going to start anywhere, no matter if he's 100% healthy or not. I think Amik Robertson has planted a flag on the slot. He's been a great fit there, but you get Mosley, that's more depth at outside cornerback. That's more depth at the slot, because that's where Mosley was really looking like a stud in training camp, where I was like, man, this guy's not played much slot before. He's playing like a Lions slot cornerback. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean like the way they want those guys to play. Sticky on tight ends, smart and disciplined when it comes to quarterbacks and running backs and the flats and stuff like that, and physical. I didn't know he had that physical brand to him. And I'll just say this about Mosley, having him back in the locker room, that's another veteran voice for those young guys. And he's more laid back and relaxed, but he is a beam of positivity. And I think that's a nice mix for that room. So we'll see how he's progressing. He's been practicing. He's still practicing, full participants too. So that's a very good note. Very good news there. And the more depth you can add in the secondary this time of year is never going to be a bad thing.
Oh, especially with the way the defense has been peppered with injuries left and right. It's just good to have a guy that is on the way back, that doesn't have any setbacks, knock on wood. And I would, like I said, activate him more closer towards it. Well, activate him, but get him out there close towards the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly. He's kind of a break glass in case of emergency guy. That's a great problem to have. Last couple of questions. Bruce, are you flying or driving to Indy? I'm hopping in a car with Nolan of the Detroit News and riding down. I am not on a flight until San Francisco. God bless. We're going to skip the politics question. Sorry, Rod, I hear you. And then we'll get out of here. We'll get out of here with Eric in Kalamazoo. Last question. As always, subtext, insider text. Sign up for that 2-week free trial. Text with Kory and myself here. We'll answer your questions, and that's where we also farm these mailbag questions for the podcast. But Eric wants to know, the Lions seem willing to pull out all their trick plays against anyone, regardless of the score. Do you think they're keeping anything in their back pocket offensively for a late season push or the playoffs? Yes. Right.
Hey, what did Ben Johnson say? The well is deep.
The well is deep, man. That's the thing about Ben Johnson. The playbook is never finished. It's never cut in half. It's all the trick plays, man. I mean, they ran a hook and ladder in the third quarter last week on 1st and 10, up 35-3 or 28-3. So yeah, man. I asked Jared Goff after the game about it, and he's just like, we do it so much in practice. We do it so much in the game. It feels like a normal base call. Talking about a hook and ladder on 1st and 10, normal base call. So yeah, man, the more you practice it, the more you trust. It's just, they've got so much in the bag, man. I wish we could sit here and tell you what we get to see in our windows of practice and stuff like that, because the men they got throwing passes is amazing.
The one that threw me off was the David Montgomery one, and then I had to go back and do a little bit of homework. I'm like, oh, high school quarterback. No wonder that looked like a tight spot.
Man. No. On Fridays, they let us see stuff. And I'm going to say this one just because the coaches brought it up and the Lions, Tim Twentyman brought it up too. Penei Sewell's got an arm on him. You've been warned. No. He's a natural athlete. That man can do anything. But no, their trick play well is never ending. Their offensive design well is never ending. I mean, that's why Ben Johnson is going to be the most sought after head coaching candidate this offseason, because not just because he's a mastermind offensive guy, but it's how he's worked with someone like Jared Goff to get him from where he was to where he is now, and how he mixes and matches guys like Montgomery and Gibbs, and how he just has an answer for everything. I mean, some days they'll beat you like a Big Ten 1990s team, and some days they'll beat you like the greatest show on turf.
One thing I've noticed about their trick plays compared to other teams is like sometimes when you see other teams run these plays, they look a little frazzled right after the snap. The Lions look like a well-oiled machine. To like Jared Goff says, This is just stuff we practice normally, and it looks like it because they do it so seamlessly.
Yeah. Nope. That's the last question for us this week. Another Mailbag podcast in the bag. Time for Ben and Kory's score predictions. You're up first, Kory. Lions Colts.
Woo! I believe that I was wrong last week when I said I thought the game was going to be closer than what we thought. I was wow.
Oh yeah, that's right. 28-14.
Yeah, I said 28-14. I was real wrong. So I'm still going to go a little bit with the closer. I think it's going to be somewhere around 35-21.
Nice. I was also thinking 35, so I'll go 35-14. 5-6 Colts team fighting for their life. Anthony Richardson back at quarterback, as I said, showing signs of life. I just think this Lions team is rolling right now. And I thought I went hard, 31-6 last week. I got it right on the Jaguars not scoring a touchdown, but I missed 3 more touchdowns for the Lions. But hey, Lions won 8 straight. They're 9-1. They have a chance to be 10-1 heading into Thanksgiving. As we said, three games in 11 days on the horizon. Thanksgiving, another Thursday. Then the Bills rocking the black jerseys. Potential Super Bowl preview right there. Don't sleep on the Bills on the other side of that bracket. But that's all we got for you today. Ben Johnson's going to talk to us here in about 10 minutes. Kory, you're hitting your stride.
Yeah, you gotta.
Feels normal.
Yeah, I'm trying to get used to it. I haven't been on a podcast mic in so long, but now I think I'm getting a little bit more comfortable.
No, comfortable and then some. Comfortable and above, as Dan Campbell likes to say. All right, guys. Thank you. Check out Subtext and MLive.com/Lions. And if you want to see our pretty faces from this, check out MLive's TikTok and the YouTube account, and you can watch me.